Hello, friends. It is Monday, and that means it's time for a happy half hour.
Yep.
Even if it's not particularly happy after what we watched yesterday. Carolina Panthers go to Jacksonville and lose 26-10 in the opener. Not the way anybody wanted necessarily start the regular season.
You never want to start off 0-1. There is a little bit of grain of salt to it. Half the teams in the league right now are 0-1.
That's
well, I
correct.
guess there's still two more teams to play tonight.
Kansas City Chiefs are 0-1.
The Kansas City. And so there's a lot of big picture stuff you can look at. There's a lot of granular stuff you can look at. We'll do a little bit of both before we move on. But, never fun to start 0-1. Never fun to go into a place and not score on opportunities where they are there. But as Dave Canales said a couple of different times today, we've got to make sure we take the lessons, not the defeat.
Right. I mean, Dave's always been a big teachable moment guy, and there were plenty to work with yesterday because it was not good. I mean, there's no other way to say it, and Dave was honest with it. One of the things I like about Canales, he's got that enthusiasm always, and he's always an upbeat guy. But he calls it Tell the Truth Monday. Mm-hmm. That's what they do. And he said, we went through that tape phase by phase day, started special teams, went offense, defense, and there was something, in each of those areas that you could point to and say, yeah, that could have been a lot better. And, the top line takeaways from that game the other day was there were too many turnovers. Mm-hmm. I mean, Bryce turns it over 3 times himself. Canales called it 4 in the postgame yesterday just because there was one that was overturned by penalty. So 3 turnovers. You give up 200 yards rushing defensively, 71 of it on one big explosive play that coming right after the long weather delay was a little bit of a dagger. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest with you, there was another half of football. Obviously, there's plenty of more opportunities. But when you're sitting there 10-3 and you get the ball first, you're thinking, okay, this is still anybody's ball game. Maybe they come out, they work on some stuff, adjust. But when their own drive stalls and then Jacksonville immediately goes, boom, 71 yards with that big run from Travis Etienne, it's like, oof, this ship's going to be hard to turn around.
Yeah, and that was I know football people hate to use this term because it's an abstract concept, but that was a momentum swinger as well.
No doubt.
And coming out of a hour-long weather delay, usually momentum swings towards the team that had been losing because you can regroup and kind of reassess, reset. But like you said, ETN comes out, breaks off a huge, huge explosive play that just swings it right back that quickly.
Yeah.
And it's at that point you're fighting the scoreboard, but you're fighting demons a little bit too.
Yeah, and that's what's hard because I know the thing outside the building is to compare it to everything that's happened before. And, Bryce now 0-3 in openers and all those kind of things, especially with the way last year went. But these things are all unique. And, I mean, so much has changed around here this offseason that any lessons from the 24 opener are barely applicable. I mean, listen, was that the performance they wanted to have in the opener? Of course not, Only a knucklehead would say that. But the reality is they've got a lot of work to do. And the thing Canales talked about today was, here are the specific things we have to work on. I mean, if you saw, the Bryce Young-Austin Corbett exchange on the snaps, here's the thing. In professional football, things are very seldom about one person or one guy screwing something up. So
it's the ultimate team game.
There was a lot of that get on the same page talk. And when you're trying to go silent count and you're changing things on the fly on the field, it's very easy for a fan to say, oh, that guy blew it or that guy didn't do his job. A lot of times there's so many moving parts that to reduce it that way is probably not the most accurate way to look at that problem. And that's what they tried to do today when they look at film. It's like, okay, let's look at what actually happened. Let's talk about what actually went on when they did that. And I think if you use any of last year's lessons to inform what went on, I mean, there were times second half of last year when the offense was playing well, when they hit a couple of those slow games. And then you get in there and correct these particular things, and you see that improvement. It's going to be incumbent upon them to see that improvement this week in Arizona.
And Canales mentioned that specifically today. He said, okay, the key now is to pull what went wrong on Sunday and address that this week. And if we make new mistakes next week, like, okay, then we learn from that next week. but to make sure you're not making the same mistake twice. And I think if you are going to sit there and compare last year's opener to this year's, it was different. Like, if a couple of different plays go differently, there's a lot more of rhythm there to the offense. If Tyson Campbell doesn't pull down Tetaroa McMillan's arm in the end zone, and it wasn't even a flag, it was just good defense. But, if he doesn't pull his arm down like that, does he catch that? Does the game feel different? If guys, a couple of different things, guys bring a ball in, get their foot down, things like that. So many little things where it takes you out of rhythm. And so can you address those small things to make a big difference? And we'll see this week.
And again, this was always going to be a learning process. I mean, this team is still young. If you didn't catch it on Panthers.com, it's still up there and you can still enjoy it. Carolina Panthers go into this season with a record-high 12 rookies on the 53-man roster. That's including the entire draft class and 4 guys who didn't start out here or were undrafted rookies. And, when you commit to getting younger, when you commit to going from being one of the oldest teams in the NFL, which they were a couple years ago, they were in the top 5 oldest teams 2 years ago, and now they're going to be likely among the youngest teams in the league in a short amount of time. There's going to be some of this kind of process. I mean, as you look at the construction of the roster, of those 53 dudes, 40 of them have arrived in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And so Dan Morgan has put his stamp on this team pretty quickly, and Dan's been honest about it. I mean, Dan just flat out says, because that's how Dan Morgan talks, we had to get younger. We wanted to create a younger core to build this team around, and that's what they did.
Also, when you look at the averages of who the oldest teams, youngest teams, whatnot, the Panthers' average gets a little bit skewed by J.J. Jansen and Andy Dalton.
And Sam Martin. Don't forget the 35-year-old punter.
So if you take out J.J. Jansen, Sam Martin, and Andy Dalton, I think they end up being one of the youngest. I think Green Bay may still be the youngest.
And again,
But,
as I am careful to point out, not to impugn the athleticism of J.J. Jansen, Andy Dalton, and Sam Martin, but if you're going to be old, backup quarterback, long snapper, punter are 3 positions you can afford to be old at.
Yeah.
These guys are very seldom sprinting 60 yards downfield trying to catch somebody.
Matt Prater came off the couch and 41 years old and kicked a game-winning field goal last night.
That's right.
That's where you can afford to pull a 41-year-old off the couch.
It
was impressive. Good for him.
I am here for the old dudes. I am in solidarity with them. But when you're trying to build a sustainable thing, which is the point of all this, you have to build it around rookies and first, second-year guys. You've got to build it around, even in free agency, when they went out, they signed Bobby Brown when he was still 24 years old. He's turned 25 since, but they've got rookies on this roster who are older than Bobby Brown, who's played 4 years in the league and has a Super Bowl ring from the Rams.
Nick Scorton was drafted at 20.
That's right. Nick Scorton's mom is J.J. Jansen's age. So
just insane to say.
And J.J. loves it when we point that out, too. He's a big fan of us remembering exactly how old he is. But again, that's a long way of saying some of this was going to happen. We talked about expectations in the preseason and a team that went from 2 wins to 5 wins. What does improvement look like? What does better look like? Is better 7? Is better 8? I don't know. We'll find out over the course of a long, long season. But there's 16 more of these to go, and we'll see how this thing shakes out.
And it's also important to note that, we can look here and it's up to us to kind of sit here and commentate and even adjudicate a little bit and be like, okay, young team, I think 4 new starters on defense.
Can we also predicate? Can we prevaricate?
No.
Can we masticate? Can we chew this one up?
Slightly pontificate.
No, I like it. See?
But when you talk to the guys in the locker room, they're not making those excuses.
Yeah.
DJ Wanham said yesterday, it doesn't matter how many new starters we have on the defense. It doesn't matter how many new guys have rolled in here. We've had all off season. We shouldn't have been having communication issues out there, and we did. That has to be fixed.
No doubt.
And so, we can kind of just dive into those parts. They are not doing so.
There is a baseline of accountability happening there because you can't ignore it. I mean, you could sit here and say, nothing's wrong. Things were wrong. And that's what Dave walked in the door talking about today is we know the things that are wrong, and there are things we should have been better at. So I just think it's going to be fascinating to see how they recover from this, what next week looks like, and how they go into the Arizona game. A couple other things to get to out of yesterday's game. The one other piece of bad news, Turk Wharton.
Yeah.
One of those defensive starters that came in free agency is going to miss some time. Canales said today he's going to miss between 2 and 4 weeks with a hamstring. Don't know yet if that's going to be the kind of transaction or kind of injury that puts him on the transaction list as a injured reserve, which would rule him out for 4. We'll see in the next couple days how that goes. Either way, not having Turk Wharton doesn't help a defense that's got to go play an Arizona team that's got a little mobile quarterback who can run around and make stuff happen.
And I'm sure the question then becomes, if it's 2 to 4, why not put him on IR? But if you think you could get him back in 2, then it's worth holding his spot because you get him back. You can. The moment you put him on IR, he has to miss 4.
Right, and so, you only get 8 of those returns during the course of a year. And they've got a couple guys, Jalen Coker, LeBrian Ray, another defensive lineman who's part of that rotation, are on IR now and possibility. Damari Mathis, we won't see again this year. He tore the ACL. He's out for the year. But when you start going through the numbers, and they got into those calculations last year of, do we use that spot on this guy or this guy? What about this guy? And you start running out of designated for return slots. So if you don't have to use it, you probably shouldn't. And I think a lot of that's going to be medical and based on what they find out from an MRI and what they, learn in the next couple of days. Because obviously Turk Wharton's a guy they thought a lot of. That's why they went out and signed him in the first couple of hours of free agency. And it's going to be tough. It's one more adjustment they've got to make.
A bit of good news, though, that we did learn today kind of on that front is it seems like Ike Ekwonu was going to be back sooner rather than later. Canales seemed hopeful and positive that, he had been trending in the right direction. It's been just over 2 weeks since he had his appendectomy, 2 weeks and a day.
That's right.
That's average for return, especially for an offense. Every guy's a little different.
As we've established on this podcast last week, every appendix is different, especially when it's outside of your body.
Outside of your body.
So,
But, we'll see if he's back on the practice field Wednesday. He said he hopes to get Pat Jones back out there as well. He had a little bit of an ankle soreness that they tested again this morning. So.
Right. Here's the thing. If you play in the NFL, you're going to wake up on Monday morning and you're going to hurt. If you played in
I wake up on Monday after a game and hurt, and I didn't even play.
Oh, boy. That's because it was very, very hot in Jacksonville.
Hot, yes.
So, there's a lot of stuff going on, so we'll see. We'll see if they get Icky back on the field this week in practice. That would certainly help. It's not that Yosh Nijman was deficient in ways that contributed to that kind of result. Again, that would be reductive and wrong. So we strive to eliminate more ignorance than we create in the given day. Thank you, Mick Mixon, for that pearl of wisdom. We'll see how things develop. I would anticipate when you think about the things that they did yesterday, it's not hard to imagine. You get Ike Ekwonu back on the field. You continue to lean on Chuba Hubbard. Here's the thing. When everything else goes wrong for the Carolina Panthers, Chuba Hubbard is a thing that is generally going to go well. And he didn't have the number of rushing attempts he usually ends up with. I mean, Chuba, I think, finished, 16
of 57.
Yeah, 16 for 57 on the ground. Not his usual Chuba Hubbard rushing line, but he gets the late touchdown. And I have said it before, and I believe this with all my heart. Having guys like Chuba Hubbard as a part of that core of leaders on the roster is so important, especially when you got a lot of young guys, because it would have been so easy for a team to roll over late. Chuba Hubbard's still out there grinding with 2 minutes left in that game, with 5 minutes left in that game, even though it was apparent that it probably wasn't going to go the Carolina Panthers' way. And so having guys with that kind of personality is critical if you want to grow this thing.
That 27-yard touchdown also went down as a pass.
Yep.
But I would count it towards his rushing yards because he picked up every single one of them with his legs.
Yeah.
And kept his balance by putting his arm down. Like you said, could have gone down at that point, but still found a way to get into the end zone to make sure they got on the board. So that's what you need. We saw a good bit of Rico Dowdle yesterday too.
Yeah.
At one point, I think they were trading off series in the second half.
Yeah, and Rico is still going to be that changeup. He's still going to be the other running back in this equation, but he's a guy, and I think as you think back over the preseason, there's still a lot of ways they want to use Rico Dowdle that we haven't seen on the field in the regular season, and those will likely come to fruition in the coming weeks and months, and we'll see that, and we'll all talk about it when it happens. But I think having a couple of backs like that allows you to change pace, because when things are going poorly, a lot of times the thing you want to do is whatever it was you've been doing, let's do something different. So I think that's where Rico comes into play. The other thing, and again, I don't want to ever be accused of trying to polish up something that was not a great result, but I do think it was a good sign for the Carolina Panthers, the game Teteroa McMillan had.
Yeah.
I mean, T-Mac goes out there, 5 catches for 68 yards, a couple of those T-Mac catches where it's like, oh,
yeah, that's why you got drafted at number 8.
And so I think as he and Bryce continue to develop chemistry, continue to work together, and continue to figure each other out, that's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah. Another guy that took accountability today, that touchdown pass that was dropped, if you go back and watch the replay, Tyson Campbell had his arm pretty much in a bind. And, yeah, T-Mac basically said, like, that doesn't matter. I get another hand on it and come in with it. And so took responsibility for that. Finished with, he is now the 3rd highest rookie debut for a Panthers receiver, behind Kelvin Benjamin and Moose.
And some guy named Muhsin Muhammad.
Moose had the most. I'm going to step out a little bit here. There was a pass. There was a pass as well that got called as DPI. So it was going to be that spot anyways. I think if it had not been, even if it had not been DPI, they could have counted that as a catch. That's kind of up to the team. Do you want to take the penalty or do you want to look at it as a catch? You're guaranteed the spot with the penalty.
Right.
You got to look at the tape for the catch. But I think if you look at it too, it looked like he pretty much had it. If that gets counted as a catch, that was around 30 yards. He might have ended 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And so a promising note from the game to realize what they saw in Teteroa McMillan and what he could be for this offense.
And again, you know what you can count on in Chuba Hubbard. You believe that offensive line is going to protect well, is going to create lanes for the running attack. You know you got a couple of 1,000-yard backs behind you. If T-Mac grows into that guy who can be that 1A target every week that is making big plays, is getting on highlight shows, all the fun stuff, I think there's an opportunity. You can kind of see the avenue for that offense to evolve. But again, all of this is contingent on Bryce Young playing better. Can't turn it over 3 times a game if you want to win a bunch of games in the NFL. I mean, if you're 2 down in the turnover margin in the NFL, you're pretty much going to lose.
Yeah.
So taking care of the balls, obviously.
Win the turnover margin, win the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's very seldom simple, but that's one of those areas you look at it, one of the lenses you look at it through. A lot of times it's kind of that simple. You turn it over the way they did yesterday. You make the mistakes they did. You miss the tackles they did yesterday. It's going to get like yesterday's game got. Woof. I'm tongue-tied.
Good thing you don't work in words.
I know, right? Or at least saying them all the time instead of writing them. This is one of those days. I think if we had a cocktail sponsor, it would be a good thing because we could just kind of call this show and go home and try to forget about what happened behind us, both this podcast and otherwise. So anyway. Big week coming up ahead.
Time to move forward.
Time to move forward. We will see you back here on Thursday where we'll break down Arizona week, what we've learned in the ensuing 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, if there's any transactions, any moves made, anything like that, and going into a big Cardinals week, a place where the Carolina Panthers have had some success in recent years. And maybe I'll tell the Vinny Testaverde in Arizona story one more time because I never get tired of that. Anytime you pull out a
Vinny Testaverde story, it's a good time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Come back on Thursday.
We may well do that. We'll see you guys here on Thursday. Until then, this has been the Happy Half Hour.